I would like to talk a little bit about the question, do we need a new credentialing system in the United States? And this is a follow-up from a video I did reviewing a book called The Captured Economy, where they basically argued that a lot of government has been captured by big money and by powerful interests within the United States. They specifically looked at three sectors: banking, credentialing, and housing. And the credentialing one really got me thinking. So this video is me kind of laying out some thoughts, including how do we think about the supply side and the demand side of the credentialing dilemma? And how do we think differently about the types of credentials that require a college degree versus those that don't require a college degree? Because there is this inequality issue going on where a lot of the accumulation of power is among people with college degrees, sort of protecting their friends and their class of people. So I'm just thinking through some of those ideas in this video. Now, as I was reading the book, the example that really got my brain going was the example of mental health professionals or mental health counselors, where oftentimes this job requires a master's degree. And I really got to thinking, that is really sad because so many people need access to mental health services. And if you need all of the theory and all of the education that goes along with a master's degree to just enter that profession, there is going to be a shortage of mental health professionals relative to what the population needs. And I also just think that people without a college degree could be given some training and in many cases could do a better job of serving populations that they know well, who grew up in similar neighborhoods with similar backgrounds. I think it is kind of a problem that everybody has to see someone from the same class of society, which is a fairly highly educated, high-class person, to get treated for mental health issues. So this example really got me thinking, okay, these authors of The Captured Economy, they're kind of onto something with credentialing, at least in a few professions. And let me give a couple more examples that were running through my brain as I read it. First example has to do with doctors and ear piercings. It used to be that you had to have a medical degree to pierce someone's ears. And of course now you can get your ears pierced in a mall with a staple gun sort of thing. That's how I got mine pierced. It seems very weird to us that doctors used to have to do that, or that used to be a job that was restricted to doctors. And obviously the profession has figured out since, oh, you don't need a medical degree to pierce someone's ears safely. But what is the process by which something gets removed from the need to have a credentialed professional do it? And obviously, improvements in technology should be part of the equation here. Like, even with ear piercings, it could be that maybe if you had to do this with a knife or with a needle, maybe you did need a little bit of extra training. Maybe you don't want your cousin doing that. But once they invented devices where anyone could just pick up the machine and do it fairly safely, that's going to displace the need for doctors. In fact, that would be an ideal situation if technology could take tasks that currently require a medical degree and move them into populations that don't have as much education but are still really dedicated, hardworking people. That would be a wonderful use of technology. It would be an equalizing force because the more jobs we can open up to people without college degrees, the more we're going to address some of these inequality issues. Now, the second example here is eye doctors. So I sometimes wonder when I go to the eye doctor, given how mechanical, how much technology is applied, do I need someone with as much education as my eye doctor has? Like, could someone with a high school degree operate the same machinery, follow the same list of directions, and know what to do in most cases? And then you might also need to be able to recognize which cases need to be passed on to someone with an MD or someone with more training. But there can be hierarchical systems that where the person operating the machinery doesn't always need the degree. So that would be a second example to think through. A third example is lawyers. So I've had friends in law school who often say that there's a huge difference between law school and practicing law. Like a lot of people who get really discouraged and hate law school end up going out and loving the practice of law. And vice versa. People who love law school, who thrive and do really well in law school, go out there and hate practicing law. So it goes both ways, which indicates to me that there might not necessarily be a good matchup between the training for that profession and the actual skills needed in law. Now, this isn't a definite thing. Like, I can definitely see a case that in law school you need certain ways of thinking, you need certain ethical practices that are kind of theoretical, that we do want most people who practice law to have a solid grounding in. So I'm not arguing against law school. What I'm trying to do here is really open up our minds to different methods of practice. And so with law school, it could be that we look at the different types of law you can practice: constitutional law, criminal law, being a divorce lawyer. Do they all need the same set of skills in law school, or could there be more streamlined ways of reaching into those professions? All right, now let's look at a couple of examples of professions that don't require a college degree. So here I'm thinking about massage therapists, cosmetologists, which are people who cut hair and do makeup, dental hygienists, fields like this, where you don't need a college degree, but oftentimes you do have to go through a long training process. Now, one of the worries I have with this group of credentialed professionals is that the schooling process could exploit the people who went into the industry. So I have in the past gone to schools that teach massage therapists. I've gotten my hair cut at schools where you learn to cut hair. I've used their services. And I know that the person cutting my hair doesn't get paid anything. As a matter of fact, they're paying to cut my hair. They're paying this institution that sort of makes all of the money that I pay and gleans that money for a longer period of time. And the same thing with massage therapy. Like, I'll pay $25 to get a massage therapist from someone learning the techniques. But they have to go to school for a fairly extended period of time. And the question is, in some cases, is there room for the person who runs the school to exploit the people wanting into the profession? And could that keep out people who don't have access to credit, or people who don't have the money to forgo an income for a period of time in order to enter the profession? So with those examples in mind, I would like to turn to this diagram to think through how can we think about issues related to inequality and access. What do I mean by the supply side here? By the supply side, I mean the people who are getting the credentials and who will be well served by the high incomes they get after they're credentialed. So that's the supply side. It's about the workers. And I'm particularly worried about workers without a college degree because of the high and growing levels of income inequality in our country. I'm very worried that people without a college degree sort of get locked out of the economic system in ways that are not perfectly just. Now, the demand side, I think, also relates to the issues we face relative to inequality. So the demand side is about the services provided to the population from these credentialed professionals. And of course, we want to protect the population from the harm that could be caused if they are served by someone who doesn't understand the risks within their profession. But we also want to make sure that there are services broadly available, including medical services, mental health services, services related to legal protection. For example, criminal legal protection. We certainly know that the people who can pay for more expensive lawyers have a huge advantage in the criminal system. So that would be a demand side issue that does relate to credentialing. So this is one way of thinking through the issues related to credentialing. Now, the next question we might ask is, if there are problems with regulatory capture, if there are problems with people designing credentials to keep people out. If this is an issue, what would be an alternative system? And I will do a next video explaining a pie-in-the-sky vision of that.